Half of my childhood home was built in the 1800s and was originally a farmhouse. The house itself is on the very top of a steep hill with woods surrounding it. I often explored this as a kid. It had the original stone fences from the farmhouse, which the broken bits I often found were obsidian rock. The first paranormal event I remember happened when I was about 6. My sister and I still shared the same room. I'll call this the purple room, as it was a deep, dark purple. One night my sister woke up yelling. At first I was confused and tired until I heard what she was yelling about. Coming from the window was the sound of wet hands squeaking in an aggressive pattern. It wasn't raining, and the room is on the second floor away from the trees, and was too high for anyone to climb up to make such a noise. So we are both petrified. We ran to tell our parents and have them check it out, but the noise stopped as soon as my dad came to check. So we went back to bed, and not even 5 minutes later it started again. And so again we ran and got our dad to check it out. It was silent. Nothing. This cycle happened one more time before we just slept downstairs. But whatever it was very strategic about its actions and who it wanted to present it to. The second paranormal event happened shortly after my sister moved her bed to the room beside mine. In other words, it happened as soon as it was only me in the purple room. I was around 7 or 8, I think. I was crying while I was putting away my laundry. I can't remember why I was crying, but I remember it being something petty. Maybe because I had to do laundry. Anyway, I suddenly stopped for no apparent reason, as I remember still feeling upset. But I stared blankly around the room. You know that blank stare you'd make as a kid trying not to cry or being scolded? It was kind of like that. I then looked up and saw a hooded old man. He was about 5'6", but only visible from the shoulders up. He was like a hologram in a way, like see-through but extremely clear, and a white, slight pale bluish color. I don't know. He emitted light as it was like broad daylight when this happened, but he was extremely detailed. I can still remember the pores on his large nose and sagging cheeks. He had thin lips with deep smile lines. I think that's what they're called. And his eyes weren't visible, but his eye bags were. His eyes themselves were covered by the hood he was wearing. The hood itself was rounded and sat flat over his head and wasn't pointed or anything. He then just disappeared after a minute. I wasn't scared, but he just had an old vibe to him, an old sour man vibe, and once he disappeared, I just finished my laundry and calmly went back downstairs. After this sighting, I had named him Newman. Not sure where the name came from, but it's spelled specifically with an uppercase for whatever reason. After that, I started talking to him and them out loud about my day, about random things I did, things I found outside. He never talked back, but I could tell it was appreciated when I did. And the days I didn't, I felt someone waiting, and I would apologize and say I'd talk to them tomorrow. Around this age, still 8, maybe closer to 9 now, my friend and I start using a spirit board at recess. This is what I think started the Shadow Man sightings. The spirit I knew wasn't Newman. Newman had a comforting feeling in his sternness. This spirit was just fear-inducing. It would lay under my bed in a way where its head would be visible from the shoulders up, and although it was just a black mass, you could distinguish its limbs and head and stuff. Anyways, it would just lay in that position at night until I would spot it, and then it would rush underneath my bed in reverse. So its whole body is completely under the bed. But when it did this, it would make a rushing, moving noises on all the stuff I had underneath my bed. I had garbage bags that stored stuffed animals, and I had hard plastic bins with winter blankets and clothes. It was very distinct and disturbing sound, and whoosh. The shadow man figure would also knock on my walls a lot. I have a video of these knocks on my old iPod somewhere. But these knocks had the same fear-inducing vibes and were definitely not Newman. This never went away, but the fear became manageable, and the experiences lessened, the less scared I was. It was during that same period when I saw Newman for a second time. I was up late on my iPod, and I felt a presence to my right, which I feel like I should add that to my right was a wall my bed was pushed against. Anyways, so I looked to my right, and there was a single eye, an old man's left eye, piercing back at me in an annoyed and frustrated expression, and was the same hologram, realistic appearance of the sighting I had of him before. It made me jolt, but I didn't feel threatened by it. I felt like I was being lectured, but it disappeared as quick as it came. After that, I turned my phone off and I went to bed. I did tell my parents the next day, but they ignored me. These next two incidents happened when I was maybe 12 or 13, and they happened outside of the Purple Room. And there are only two that have happened in the house outside of the room, although they were both still on the side that was built in the 1800s, which is strange. Anyways, the first incident, I was upstairs and home alone, and I was in the Purple Room, and I heard papers being shuffled downstairs. Confused as I was home alone, I paused my music to get a better listen. But after I paused my music, the shuffling of the papers got louder and became aggressive, as if someone was throwing paper after paper in a fit, trying to look for something, or maybe just annoyed at something. I then walked out of my room over to the top of the stairs to look down to see if I could see anything. The noise still continued, and I could now tell that the noise was coming from the right side of the staircase, which to the right is a home office area at the end of the hallway and right beside the front door. This is kind of important for the next story. Anyways, I still didn't see anything, but I could hear it. So I took a step down to the stairs, and it immediately stopped, as if it knew I was there. So I ran back up into my room and I jammed the door shut until someone came home. But no one had broken in upon checking, so it was dismissed by my parents. The second incident was I was downstairs in the kitchen when I heard loud aggressive knocks on the front door, the one beside the home office where I heard the papers. My sister was supposed to be dropped off by a friend that day, so I went over to the front door, figuring she was just annoyed that I had locked it. I opened it and looked around on the screen porch, but she wasn't there. So I checked the door on the screen porch that leads to the outside, and it was locked. So I knew it wasn't her or a person, as it was a brick house and the porch was half brick, so no one could get in without you hearing or noticing. So I freaked out, and aware that it's not good to open a door for a spirit to let them into your home, especially one that's knocking angrily, I went back to the front door that leads inside, and I said, "You're not allowed in. Leave." I then shut and locked the door again, and I went back to the kitchen, and immediately the door handle started violently shaking up and down, and the door was shaking as if someone was trying to push it. I went back and I shouted, "Get out!" Felt kind of hopeless, but after that it only continued for under a minute. Then it stopped. For whatever reason, I felt like the paper shuffling and the door were related, as I got the same aggressive and frantic annoyed feeling from them. The last two incidents that happened before I moved were both involving Newman. I was about 15 or 16, and I hadn't had any contact from Newman in a while, and I wasn't even sure he was still there, or if it was just more the sinister spirits now. So I was home alone one day, and in my bedroom. I told him out loud I doubted his presence, but would still like to hear from him. I asked him that if he was still there to move my desk chair. I told him he had 30 minutes and that I would go downstairs and come back up after 30 minutes, and so I did. And when I came back upstairs, the chair was in the center of the room. Me thinking I might have misplaced the chair in the center instead of at my desk, I then asked him to move it again, back to the desk, to confirm it was him, and again I gave him 30 minutes. And when I came back upstairs, it was back at the desk where I'd asked him to move it. Seeing it move the second time made me go pale as a ghost. The chair, although small with wheels, was an older chair, so it was pretty heavy at the base. I was never able to lift it more than 2 feet. After that, I just said thank you and that I received the sign. But I was still shaken. The last incident was the same sighting of his left eye, but this time to the right side of my bed, and it was higher up than my eye level and looking down, not like it was before, staring eye to eye. This time it also didn't make me jump, but I can't remember what I was doing before. I just remember seeing him and then him disappearing. Then me turning off the light and going to bed. Overall, the house was very strange. But other than the window incident my sister also experienced, no one else ever saw or heard anything. For whatever reason, it was only me. And since moving, I haven't had any encounters with any other spirits. But I still feel like, and in a way I hope that Newman has stayed with me. I'll reply to this post if I ever see him again, but it's been pretty radio silent. I do also have a set of eyes that I'd taken when feeling something looking at me, but I can't quite figure out how to submit it on the same post. Anyways, feel free to ask any questions, or please, if anyone knows anything about the name Newman or any type of spirits in these stories, please let me know. I'd love to hear any theories or explanations or similar experiences.